Good morning, all. Respected speaker, Dr. Bhupinder Singh Bhoop, sir, and convener of this program, Dr. Jagdish Panda, sir, principals, faculty members, and all the participants of all the pharmacy colleges across India. Welcoming you all for this 1 week faculty development program on holistic approaches for excellence in pharmaceutical education, research, and publishing. Today, day 3, the topic is ethical issues in publishing pharmaceutical research, Vigours and Rigours. Myself, Jogendra Kumar, Associate Professor, Raghu College of Pharmacy. Today we have on board our eminent speaker, Dr. Bhupinder Singh Bhoop, sir, and our convener, Dr. Jagdish Panda, sir. Now I request Dr. Jagdish Panda, sir, to take over the session and say a few words about our eminent speaker, Dr. Bhupinder Singh Bhoop, sir. Thank you.
Respected today's chief speakers, Dr. Bhupinder Singh sir, and dear participants. Good morning to all of you for this third day. And it's my great privilege and honor I feel to introduce today's speaker, Sir Bhupinder Singh Bhoop, sir. And I would like to say about a small brief biodata of sir. So he's actually acclaimed globally for his scientific research work, especially on systemic development of novel and nanostructured drug delivery using QPD paradigm and advanced pharmacokinetic modeling. Professor Bhoop has contributed over 37 years of dedicated service towards the pharmaceutical education and research. Professor Bhoop has, to his credit, over 380 original publications, 15 books by prestigious international publishers, and 69 book chapters. A widely traveled scientist, he has delivered more than 310 plenary, keynote, and invited talks in India and overseas, including USA, Canada, Germany, China, Thailand, Hong Kong, Kuwait, Dubai, and Bangladesh. Several thousands of industrial scientists from leading pharma companies of India, of the likes of Mylan, Zydus, Ranbaxy, Cipla, Cadila Pharma, Centis, Sun Pharma, IPCA, Glenmark, Sanofi, Aventis, Ajanta, Alchem, Jubilant, Bharat Serum, Panacea Biotech, Beximo, Pharma, that is at Dhaka, and Biovectra at Canada, have been duly trained by him on QBD biobehaviors and nanomedicine. He has guided and guiding over 100 researchers, including 31 PhDs and 6 postdoctorates, completed 6 industrial consultancy assignments, and has 6 patents and 2 technical transfers of nanotech-based drug delivery products. He has earned research grants over 7.3 crores from governmental and corporate sectors. His work has fetched Professor Bhoop with numerous awards and accolades like Leading Educators of World UK 2007, Pharma Bach Pharma Personality Award 2008, Shiksha Ratna Puraskar 2008, Innovative Scientist Award 2012 from CIPP, and QBD and Product Performance Award 2012 and 2013 by AAPS USA, American Association of Pharmaceutical Society, QBD Excellence Award 2013 from Asia, CPHA, and Outstanding Scientist Award 2014, Select Bio from UK, Pharma QBD Outstanding Performance Award 2014 State is USA, APTA Best Pharmacy Teacher Award 2014, Professor M.R. Baichwal Oration Award 2015, ICT India, Scientist Par Excellence Award 2015 from UK, and Udrajit Award 2015 from Germany, Professor J.S. Rani Oration Award 2015, HT Performer of 2015, Innovative Healthcare Researcher Award 2016, Name in Science Award, Oxford UK 2016, Professor D.V.S. Jain Best Scientist Award 2018, Global QBD Excellence Award 2019, Shanji, China, 21 times, felicitations by Punjab University Syndicate and many more. At Punjab University, Professor Bhoop has been a chairman University Institute of Pharmaceutical Sciences from 2014 to 17, fellow and member in University Senate and Syndicate 2012 to 16, Dean Faculty of Pharmaceutical Science at 2012 to 14, and Dean Alumni Relations 2007 to 11, and he's currently coordinator of UGC Center of Advanced Studies CIS and Pharmaceutical Sciences, and founder coordinator of National UGC Center for Excellence in Nano Biomedical Application 2011 to till date. On the basis of his exemplary accomplishment, Mr. Hamid Ansari, then the Vice President of India, Professor Ved Prakash, then the Chairman of UGC, and Indian Pharmaceutical Association, IPA, conferred upon Professor Bhoop the Honorary Fellowship Award of Punjab University 2011, Punjab Academy of Sciences 2017, and IPA 2018, respectively. It is our great privilege, sir, and great fortune we all enough. Today we are blessed with your great presence, and the meaning of this FDP because of your presence is there, sir. So thank you very much for accepting our invitation. And thank you, sir. Please proceed, sir. Your talk.
Thank you so much, Dr. Jagadish and Dr. Joginder, for inviting first me to deliver this webinar on a topic which is very close to my heart, that is the ethical issues in publishing research, particularly in this case, pharmaceutical research, various Rigours and Vigours. So I consider this as my privilege to talk to the young faculty members, young and not so young faculty members, and maybe some researchers on board, to talk about my experience and my observations with respect to this field in the last more than 3.5 decades. So without, and I must appreciate for very nice introduction, Dr. Jagdish. Thank you so much. Let me start with the presentations. So, as it's visible to one and all, I'm going to talk about rigors and vigors of ethical publishing. So, my dear friends, I have structured my talk in this fashion. First, I'll be talking a little bit about research methodology, and
Sir, excuse me, sir. You have muted your cam, sir. Please switch on the cam, sir.
Okay. Just a minute. So it's not visible.
Your voice is audible, sir, but you're not.
It's okay. Yeah. So little bit about research methodologies and research publishing, and then I'll talk about the unethical and ethical aspects of publishing. So, my dear friends, I personally feel research is finding something novel, something innovative, which is not known earlier, or to extend it from what is known earlier, or to publish or present or decipher in a different way as it has been done earlier. So you do it. The data is the earlier known ones, the unoriginal ones, the old one, but new revelation of the older data. That's also a kind of research. What scientific research is usually endeavoring for, to gain familiarity with the phenomenon, to portray the characteristics of a group or situation, to identify the cause and effect relationship, and various kinds of research: observational research, participatory research, archival research, correlational research. I beg your pardon. Yeah.
Sir, excuse me, sir. Just in the slideshow you have to do, sir. Just make it maximum, sir. Size slideshow.
Okay. I have to.
No, sir. No, not sir.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah,
just slideshow, sir. In that big one, big slide, you will find it. You can maximize the slide. No, not to touch that, sir. You go to the slide, sir. You just go to PPT, sir. Just go to PPT, sir. There you find this. Yeah, that side, sir. And there's just come down.
I should maximize here. That's okay.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, it's okay. Rest everything is done. Both camera as well as slide sharing is on. So we were discussing about what it endeavors for and various kinds of research. Dr. Jagdish, everything is fine? Okay. Observational participatory research, archival research, correlation research. In sciences and pharmaceutical sciences, we normally carry out observational research. And in typical research methodology, the research problem, is to be split into various parts. I must say, the British policy holds good over here. British policy, by virtue of which they reigned over majority of the world, including India, was divide and rule. I think the same is valid for research too. Divide the research problem into various parts and rule over it. So there are various parts of carrying out research. The most important and the first and the foremost is review of the literature and developing a hypothesis, and then collect the data, execute the data, analyze the data, decipher the data, and test that hypothesis finally. And even if the hypothesis is accepted or rejected, you have to discuss the same and prepare a report or thesis for the same to be reported or to be patented. So my dear friends, theory leads you to develop a hypothesis. Hypothesis leads you to carry out some observations. Observations, whether positive or negative, affirmative or not affirmative, leads you to the reformulation of hypothesis, and whatever may be the results of whether the hypothesis has been accepted or rejected, that leads to reaffirmation and fortification of the theory of the existing knowledge which is available in literature. So it does not matter at all, my dear friends, what is the hypothesis. Say whether hens came into existence or whether egg came into existence, there's no question fighting or argumenting over here. You have to lay a sound hypothesis and keep working on the same and keep endeavoring to prove or disprove the same. But in research, we admit that to err is human, to forgive is divine, and to persist in error is, of course, devilish. So there will be various kinds of errors which we'll be committing. Honest errors, which are unintentional and sometimes unavoidable and pardonable too. Negligent errors, which are unintentional, avoidable, and are not easily pardonable. But there are another kinds of errors which are very serious, deliberate errors, intentional errors, introduced into the system for fallacious minds, which are certainly avoidable and which are never pardonable. And publishing. Now I come to the publication of research. I quote two great scientists and social scientists in this regard. Whitesides has been, Nobel laureate, close to Nobel laureate. He was nominated 4 times, a physicist, but he was not. He was never granted with Nobel Prize. He said, "An paper is an organized description of hypothesis, data, and conclusions intended to instruct the readers. If your research does not generate papers, it might just as well not have been done." So it's very important that you carry out the research and you publish it. If your good research lies hidden in the documents, in the thesis, in the dissertations, and is not part of the scientific mainframe, so it's not it has not reached the desired people, so it's not practically have been done. So you got your degree, you got your thesis accepted, but it has not benefited the scientific mainstream. Similarly, a social scientist, a great social scientist, he also claims if it wasn't published, it wasn't done at all. So publication is very, very important. And my dear friends, publication is a team effort. It not only involves the authors, it involves the editors and the editorial staff, and of course the reviewer. It's a team effort. And what is publishable? The original significant findings, well organized, well written papers, concise and yet complete manuscripts. So let me seek your pardon. Uh, I have nearly 220 slides for you to show. So please, bear with me. I'll, keep, skipping the major part of the slides, and wherever the emphasis needs to be made, I'll make the emphasis there and then. But you have to move along with me in the sojourn through these 220 plus slides. So concise, terse, but yet complete manuscripts are considered as publishable. What is not publishable is routine extensions of previous reports, incremental or fragmentary reports, means partial reports, not the complete ones, and poorly organized papers or very verbose papers where very flowery, very ornamental English has been used, but not the appropriate technical English which anybody and everybody can understand and implement. Manuscripts with unnecessarily added illustrations, and those two are of poor quality, poor resolutions. They are not considered as good material for publication. And of course the manuscripts which are violating the ethical guidelines, the current presentation is to highlight that aspect. So peer review is a very important process. In this regard, I must share that today even the good journals are asking for your recommendations, recommendations of the authors, whom to be selected as the peer reviewer. And many times we get tempted to select the people whom we know, or the people who know us or know our work. So maybe that when they are reviewing our work, the results will be very favorable. Please never ever do it. Even I have been also part of recommending such type of authors in my now nearly 400 publications. So whenever I have been tempted to recommend some of the reviewers who are known to me, I have observed that the results are, you know, invariably unfavorable. But for the last 10, 12 years or so, I have started, recommending the reviewers who are experts in the field, whether my paper gets accepted instantaneously or, accepted after major or minor reviewing, or it's rejected altogether. But whatever feedback I am getting is an honest and expert feedback. So whenever the peer reviewers are being asked from you for being recommended, my humble advice to you is go in for the experts in the field. Rest, judicious things will follow. So it's an arduous exercise till the paper gets accepted. You have to pass through various milestones. There's as this hilarious tune is telling. My dear friends, I must share that Aristotle, a great philosopher in the BC era, used to tell, knowing is much easier than understanding. It is the understanding that can overcome any situation, however mysterious, difficult, or insurmountable it may appear to be. It's the understanding that's the key. And even Albert Einstein, great scientist, he told the same way, any fool can know. The point is to understand. Understanding is far deeper than knowledge. There are many who know you, but there are very few who understand. To make my point across, I have a small clip of the TV ad. Just go through this, please.
लंच में घर आओगे बेटा? नहीं माँ लाइब्रेरी जाना है। और डिनर ग्रुप स्टडीज है माँ। चाय तो पीता जा बेटा। हाँ तुम्हारी चाय हाँ। ग्रुप ऑन रेड लेबल स्वस्थ रहे मस्त रहे।
So, did you observe in both of these TV ads? First, at the onset, let me share that I'm neither a protagonist of Brook Bond, the tea, nor of Kellogg's Heart to Heart. But the point which I try to make across is that in both of these presentations, uh, can I have the maximize the volume?
Already.
Okay, okay. So the point I try to highlight over here, accentuate over here in both these slides. In the first, the lady understood her husband and she was able to predict the move that now he's going to order for samosa, he's going to, select the pink tie, he's going to put his arm around me because he's relaxed. And all her moves were, anticipated very accurately. Similarly, the mother, you know, was able to predict what his son is going to quip in response to the questions which she has asked, because she could understand her son, I'm sorry, very correctly. So both could, first lady could understand her husband and second lady could understand her son very accurately, because they they understood their kins and they could predict their moves. So wherever there is understanding, there is prediction. And basically, my dear friends, science is a testable, predictable knowledge. So prediction is part of science, and predictions can occur only if there is understanding as a prelude. Knowledge is one aspect. Knowledge understood and becoming part of our gray matter is the most important part, which is considered as understanding, which is the crux of research and research publications. Some years back, 2008, Elsevier, the largest online publisher of scientific journals, questioned, is there any crisis in publishing ethics? And simultaneously, it gave the answers itself. In 2008 January, in Nature, it was reported that as many as 2 lakh of the 17 million, 1.7 crore articles in Medline were found to be duplicates. I'm talking about 2008 statistics, and 12 years have passed. And the number must have been, today, must have been doubled or quadrupled. And also, it pointed out that almost possibly 70 research papers of one chemistry professor, Dr. Petiam Chiranjeevi of Sri Venkateswara University, are likely to be falsified or plagiarized between 2004 and 7. And it was reported in Chemical and Engineering News. And in fact, I was sharing in a very recent faculty development program in Punjab University, and one of the young teacher from the same university, he rose up, sir, you are unnecessarily demeaning my prestigious university. It's ranked in top 50 as far as MHRD's and NIRF ranks are concerned, and you are bringing bad name to my university. Manika, I'm not bringing bad name to your university. I'm bringing, the account of one of the individuals from your university who was not good, who was who plagiarist and proven plagiarist, you know. And then he told that, can I have the proof? Like, okay, if you need, if you cannot find yourself, I'll send you the proof, as gathered from literature. And we shared the emails with each other. And after a month or so, when he got back, I got a response from that young teacher, sir, whatever you were telling, that was absolutely right. Dr. Patim Chiranjeevi was, implicated by the university and ultimately was asked to resign from the university. So, my dear friends, there are so many possible manipulations which can be contemplated and which can be executed while publishing research: plagiarism, self-plagiarism, fabrication, deception, ghostwriting, bribery, cheating, sabotage, professional misconduct, salami slicing, mosaic plagiarism, bare assertions. I'll explain majority of them in the subsequent slides. Let me take plagiarism. So plagiarism is adopting or reproducing original articles or creations of another author without acknowledging the original publications or original creations. If you acknowledge, it's no more a case of plagiarism. Self-plagiarism, without sharing that part of this information has already been published, you are trying to get the credit of multiple publications from the same article. Fabrication, you are, you know, making data, making data. You're fabricating data. And falsification, the data is there with you, but you are changing it. You're fraudulently, falsifying. You're changing the claim, changing the, data to suit your requirement. Ghostwriting, somebody writing publication for you without his or her name being part of the publication or the patent, or you are doing it for somebody without you being part of that publication or patent. That's called as ghost writing. Cheating, getting or obtaining assistance in the form of some exercise without duly acknowledging that person. Bribery, paying money or accepting money for getting a work published. Sabotage, working against the research or research publication of somebody else, you know, uh, with the fraudulent mind, is called as sabotage. And professional misconduct, which is considered as a scam, which is called as a, act of fraudulent activities to very high magnitude and which is legally punishable. So let me explain, very in relatively interesting way what is plagiarism, although majority of us are already conversant with. So plagiarism, it is the act of presenting another's works or ideas, even ideas, as your own. You are pretending that these are your original ideas while these belong to somebody else. So it ranges from the unreferenced use of the ideas, even research grant applications and research manuscripts. So the way out is that all sources should be disclosed and duly referenced here. Let me share that in one of now how can this happen? Around 18, 20 years back, I and one of my senior teachers, we applied for DST TIFAC grant, and the grant was to convert the institute where I am working, that's University Institute of Pharmaceutical Sciences, as the National Drug Information Center, because we had lot of data and lot of expertise and lot of experience in that direction. But we never heard from DST. And we came to know, almost 2 years later, that the similar kind of project has been sanctioned to another university. Okay, we had a sigh of grief and relief or whatever. And one day, one of my students, who did his B Farm from our institute and M Farm from another pharmacy institute, he happened to be there in the city beautiful, that's Chandigarh, and he called me, "Sir, I wish to meet you." I told him point and blank that I'm keeping a quite busy profile today. Can you meet me any day else? Sir, I'm here. I'm working at Mumbai, and I'm here for a day or so, and I wish to share something very, something very important, and which is, you know, are affecting my psyche, which is affecting my mind, and heart. So, okay, you come over for 15-20 minutes. That's what I can squeeze. And he came over here. Usually, my room is many a times encroached by research scholars and the students and postdocs. So they were sitting, and he asked to leave uh, my room because he wanted to share some confidential information. He bolted the door from inside and shared that, "Sir, you must have applied for DST TIFAC grant of a couple of crores along with another teacher." And okay, yes. So I must seek your apologies. He touched my feet, and he told that I was part of that exercise where the grant was given to another institute. And tell me how. And this, the meeting was held in my institute, and my institute director asked, the experts, "Sir, some can something be arranged for us? Okay, you haven't applied for any grants. So can we do so now?" And okay, here are the proposals. Bring a proposal in the backdated form, and we'll consider it. And they handed over our proposal to the university, and they, because it was already 1.5 years, or 15, 16 months. So they prepared an updated, revised version of the same and presented before the panel, and it was accepted. And we were denied the grants on the original, proposal, while the other institute was granted. And I came to know later that the other institute, because they didn't know how to make use of the infrastructure and the manpower they got through that Drug Information Center project to utilize that. 5-year project was a fiasco, and so many computers were bought by that university, but of no avail. So this is how it can happen. Many times, the people who are senior, like me and many others, who may be listening, they get tempted, that I've got a very innovative research proposal. So shouldn't I pass it on to my research team for emulating the same, And let me, grant or not grant this approval and recommendation to this project, but let me steal or borrow this idea and pass it on to my students. Please never ever do it. The idea borrowing, idea stealing is also called as a case of plagiarism. So, plagiarism is an act to write or present somebody else's work without acknowledging the original authors. I reiterate. If you cut and paste it from the web, they'll call it that it's a case of plagiarism. But I didn't cut and paste, I printed it and then typed it. Is that plagiarism? I mean, I typed it. Still, it's a case of plagiarism. Control X, Control V, Control C, Control V, cutting and pasting without citing. This leads you as an enticement towards plagiarism. Originality is the key. The son tells, "What do you mean all my facts are wrong?" I copied everything straight off the internet, and got F on it, very surprised. And here the guy is copying the image and the creative painting. This is also a case of plagiarism. And the son tells Papa, "My teacher gave me an F on my report. She accused me of plagiarism." And the father tells, "That is outrageous. I'll get that teacher fired. I stole that report years ago from National Geographic magazine and got an A on it. How can you get F?" So this is the scenario. This is due to the lack of information, that today, with the availability of so many tools to find similarity and plagiarism, you cannot afford to fall into such type of fraudulent exercises. Now, the left guy tells, "I'm here because of the grand theft of an automobile." And what about you? He says, "I'm here because of plagiarism." And look at the dress and the code. The code is also plagiarized, because adat nahi jati. Now, look at this guy. The first person to Twitter, who wrote, "I'm having coffee," and so many people answered. When he, shared, "I'm having coffee" on Twitter. Another person wrote, "I'm having coffee too." Another person wrote, "I'm having filtered coffee." Okay. Another wrote, "I'm going to have a cup of coffee." Third, next people said, "I'm going to, take a cup of tea." And I'll, another told, I'll prefer, glass of beer, whatever. So he sued all of them in the court that all have plagiarized me. Then the judge told her, "Guy, this is very simple information. This is not a case of plagiarism because this is the common information. I'm having coffee. It's not a case of any technical, any confidential, or any complicated information which has been borrowed. It's a routine matter." People have their own definitions with respect to plagiarism. Now look at these two identical fraternal twins. The the girl on the left is 3 minutes senior to the girl on the right, because both are twins. The twin sisters, and the former, who's 3 minutes elder, calls herself as Control C, and the other one calls herself as Control V. What I called as creative recycling, is people call it plagiarism. And it's not called as plagiarism anymore, the son tells the mom. It's called as pre-packaged originality. And stealing from one person is called as plagiarism. This lady has its own definition. Stealing from so many is research. And the boss tells that this is not good enough, and he knows that it's case of plagiarism. And the student tells, "Sir, it is from your own book. Even if it is from sir's own book, it's a case of plagiarism." Plagiarism? But my roommate gave me permission to use his paper and said I don't have to cite him. Even if you have got the verbal permission, it's a case of plagiarism unless you disclose the source. This paper looks like the article which we read last week. The other girl tells, "Well, what can I say? Great minds think alike." It could be a case of coincidence. No, this is a case of plagiarism. Really, the student tells, "Someone told it's not a case of plagiarism if the original author is dead." Still, even if the original author is in this carnal world or beyond, it's a case of plagiarism. One gets tempted to plagiarism very easily. This girl, "Oh no, I forgot that 12-page assignment which is due tomorrow. If I don't copy it, I will fail. So let me plagiarize." "I need you to do a presentation on the topic of plagiarism," the boss tells. "If you don't have time to prepare anything, just steal something off the internet." And I downloaded my essay from the internet. And the topic is very interesting: the perils of plagiarism. And the topic on which the examination is being conducted is how important are ethics in today's society. And you see how ethical are the examinees. Self plagiarism. It is submitting the same work for credit of publication in two or more different classes. Some time back, when Henry Clinton and uh, Barack Obama were fighting for the presidential candidacy under Democrats in US, I think around 8, 9 years back, you know, one of these speeches for Barack Obama was accused that he has used the speech again. That is a case of self-plagiarism, and Henry Clinton is very, very happy. But it was not found to be the same. It was that accusation was held null and void, and she seems to be very excited.
Whenever you use a source in something that you're writing, whether that source is a journal article, a website, a book, or whatever, You have two choices in terms of how you use that source. You can either quote from it using the author's direct words and putting them in quotation marks, or you can paraphrase from it. Let's talk about this word paraphrase. You've probably heard it explained to you as, quote, putting it in your own words. Well, that's about half right. Sometimes less, sometimes more. You see, whenever you paraphrase, you can't really put something completely in your own words. You can put it into your own phrases, your own sentences, because you will have to repeat certain key words. Let me give you an example. Let's look at this. The Great Mississippi Flood of 1927, which covered large portions of Arkansas, Illinois, Kentucky, Louisiana, Mississippi, and Tennessee under 30 feet of water, is considered the most destructive river flood in United States history. Citation, fatal flood. Now, if you're going to paraphrase that, you can't put it entirely into your own words. How else are you going to say Louisiana, or Mississippi, or Kentucky, or flood, or 1927? You have to use certain key words. So the issue is not putting something 100% into your own words. The issue is putting it into your own voice, your own phrases, your own sentences. Let's take a look at a good paraphrase of that quotation. In 1927, the Great Mississippi Flood drowned sections of 6 states, including Louisiana, and is still considered as the worst our country has ever known. Citation, fatal flood. So as you see, I repeated certain key words, and that's just fine, because I put it into my own sentence, my own phrases, my own voice.
I think you got from what the professor told, the US professor, that to avoid plagiarism, you have to put it into your own phrases, your own sentences, and you have to acknowledge them. The reference has to be cited, and the information, whatever, has to be put into your own phrases, if not exactly into your words. Now, to avoid that was with respect to plagiarism. Now, there is another classical term which is involved. This is called as mosaic plagiarism, which cannot even be detected using the so-called plagiarism detectors. Mosaic plagiarism is also called as intelligent plagiarism. So it's a changing of few words or slightly reworking sentences or paragraphs does not, involve this kind of plagiarism. Say, for example, the sentences, the artist employed myriad colors to illustrate the transformation from the dream world to reality. And the person who is a clever plagiarist, he writes, the painter used many colors to show the change from imaginary world to actuality. Instead of artist, it's painter. Instead of employed, it's used. Instead of myriad, it's many. Instead of illustrated, it's show. Instead of transformation, it's change. Instead of dream world, it's imaginary world. Instead of reality, it's actuality. No plagiarism detector software can catch this, but it is a case of plagiarism called as mosaic plagiarism because only the synonyms have been used, the information has been exactly borrowed. The correct usage can be like this. Color can be a way to show transitions, and in this case, the painter uses it to show where fiction ends and reality begins. Or there could be another way of putting into your own sentences, own phrases, as that professor told. Within quotes, myriad colors, because you have borrowed that sentence. So within quotes, what used by the painter to show within quotes transformation from the dream world to reality. So you are acknowledging that I have borrowed the same part of the sentence from the original author. So, but in science, quotation is very less used. We have to re-paraphrase. How do I avoid plagiarism? Always reference the work of others, put the words of others in quotation marks, as I have just tried to explain. And whenever the information is colossal, good amount of information is there, figures are there, tables are there, then you have to, get the permission from the original publishers or the authors, which whosoever has got the copyright. So you have to write to them, you have to seek the permission. And there is a site, copyright360.com, copyright360.com, which tends to be a conglomerate of so many publishers, and they tend to invariably provide you the access of various figures, various tables, various text, whichever you seek from, provided you are one of the co-authors of that. And even if you are not co-authors, if the information is around 10, 15 years old, they normally allow you. And it also depends on the policy of the journal, who has published that information. So you can write to them, copyright360.com. They'll invariably provide you the access of that information. And these days, journals, if you have got some information which you need to cite, and which you need to seek permission from, and journals also allow that you write to them, the publisher, and keep the journal editor where you wish to publish in BCC mode, so that they can come to know that you have written to them. And if you do not listen from them, you again send a reminder, gentle reminder, after 15, 20 days. And if you do not hear from them in return, then the publisher, where do you wish to publish, is convinced that you tried your level best and they have not responded. So it means, it is an implicit yes, it's an implicit affirmation, it's an implicit, concurrence to the use of that information. Had they not concurred, they would have objected to it. So since they have not objected, we can use that figure, that table as such in our journal publication, with the permission that this is borrowed from this journal. So the types of information one should always cite in a paper or project is words, ideas, graphics. One doesn't need to cite the source when it is your own information, your own ideas, graphics, or the common knowledge that who is the prime minister of the country, Narendra Modi, who is the principal of your college, Dr. Jagdish, or who's the organizer of this webinar. This kind of information is known to you, Raghu College of Pharmacy, and me to and anybody else. So if I use that knowledge somewhere, and somebody else also writes that Raghu College of Pharmacy organized this webinar on research publications, and it's not a case of plagiarism anymore, because it's a common information. It's not very complicated, very confidential information. It's a common information. So how to avoid plagiarism in nutshell? Do your own work, establish your own voice, do your research carefully. Keep copies of all your drafts. Else, somebody may, if accuse you have got that original drafts ready with you. Make sure your document is properly constructed and your sources are correctly cited. The information, the resources of the information have been properly cited. And shared hard copies of your work with your guide if you are seeking PhD or post graduation or postdoc, etc. Or if you are mentor yourself, you can share it with your student. So citing, paraphrasing, and summarizing, these three are the
Good
keys.
afternoon, Sam. I'm glad you are here. I'd like to get an update on your progress with the research manuscript. As you know, tomorrow is the deadline for submission.
Oh, no problem. It will be ready by noon tomorrow.
This manuscript is very important. Do you have any questions about any of the sections?
Well, yes. I used the university plagiarism detection software and found some sections with a high match rate. The background section has a 60% match rate with another article, and the results section has a 40% match rate.
Oh, what were the sources of the matches?
Both were articles that you were listed as a co-author.
Yes, I copied and pasted some of the content from those articles. Since I wrote those sections, it is fine.
According to the information in my research integrity course, this is still considered plagiarism and is classified as self-plagiarism. Any content used from another source must be properly cited.
Are you sure? I've done this before and no one noticed.
Many times, out of ignorance, we keep citing our own information without duly referring to the earlier article. So it becomes a case of plagiarism. And the older generation, like ours, many times, play, ignorant to this, while the younger generation, through various courses, through various webinars like this, are, made acquainted with such type of, issues of ethical publishing, plagiarism, self-plagiarism more often. We must cite. And one must realize that almost all the ethical violations are exposed earlier or later. Earlier, you get, after publications, you get awards and recognitions. When you are found to be involved in some fraudulent exercise, that award tends to be converted into fraud. I'll explain, some of the cases which are known across the world. Fried Zakaria, not a, academician, but he was one of the highest ever paid TV anchors who used to be there on the Times TV, who used to be there CNN TV, and the ladies used to be very, very fond of him in particular. And one of the richest and one of the highest paid TV anchors. And one fine day, he published one article in Time magazine, How Guns Won, and he was accused of plagiarism. In fact, he got significant amount of information from the magazine New Yorker, and which he didn't conceal. He didn't acknowledge that information that it has been borrowed from New Yorker, and there were so many cases filed against him, and he had to ultimately, acknowledge that, yes, I did borrow that information, and without acknowledging the same, and I apologize. He apologized, but his career got doomed. He was paid to the millions of dollars for each appearance. Now he's no more a visible face on the public media. Canadian PM was accused some time back, 15, 16 years back, for using his speech more than once. His secretary had to ultimately resign. Bush aide was also similarly, 10, 12 years back, was asked to resign because one of the speeches which Bush used was quite similar to the one which he had already spoken sometime back in another platform. It was found that it was due to the lapse at the secretary part, so he had to be sacked. And in India too, in the almost in the same in 2012, uh, the former Prime Minister, Dr. Manmohan Singh, his advisor, Dr. Manmohan Singh is very thoroughly respected personality across the world, and so is Professor Sienna Rao, who was the principal scientific advisor to Dr. Manmohan Singh. Some of the information from, I think, NIH or WHO was used in one of the reports, which was cited by Dr. Manmohan Singh in response to the query of one of the members of the parliament. And the information cited by him, which was borrowed by Dr. Sienna Rao, didn't have that information, didn't have that information from the original source. So uh, Dr. Manmohan Singh, and Dr. Sienna Rao had to apologize. His letter, Dr. Sienna Rao's letter, was read out in Parliament, and Parliament, because he's a very thoroughly respected personality, the only Bharat Ratna awardee scientist among scientists, other than Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam. There are two scientists, in India who have been awarded with Bharat Ratna. Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam and Dr. Sienna Rao. He's currently working in Bangalore. Earlier, he used to be associated with the Indian Institute of Science at Bangalore. And so he had to send his apology. And of course, the parliament exonerated him. But it doesn't happen always. Dr. R.A. Mashelkar, the then CSIR Director General, in 2007, he also sent a report which was found to be plagiarized, which was found to be copied of some information from WHO or some other agency, where the reference was not cited. So he was asked to explain, and Dr. Mashelkar had to resign. So he tendered his apology as well as resignation. John Bon Jovi. Those who are fond of English music, they know about his name. He's a very fond name in the American and the Western circles. He was sued in 2008 for copying and cheating and stealing the lyrics of a song uh, in 2008. But the matter was settled out of court, and I think in 1/10 of the money. But it was big, colossal amount. It takes, billion means 10 raised to per 9. 4 into 400 into 10 raised per 9 means 4 into 10 raised per $11, and add to it 75. I mean 300 into 10 raised to power. You can very well see 11 means of how many rupees did he part with as just for plagiarizing the lyrics of a song. I think all the Indian can understand and can recall. This is the Zalima Song, which was enacted in the movie by none other than Shah Rukh Khan. And it was accused to be a plagiarized piece of the lyrics, of Taeyang's song "Eyes, Nose, Lips," a Korean singer. And again, the matter had to be settled out of court due to avoiding loss of prestige of the producer and the lyricist and the director and of course the actor Shah Rukh Khan, and the matter was settled. But this was the recent case in Bollywood industry too. And German defense minister had to quit because his PhD degree was found to be largely plagiarized in quite recently, in 2011. And let me share in Germany, and certain other countries, the people in an industry, unlike in country like ours, was are the people who are with the highest kind of degrees decorated with him. So one gets, allured to get into the highest degrees like PhDs, like MTechs, like MBAs, to become part of the ministries. So he had to resign ultimately. Similarly, another lady, in a couple of years later, German education minister, Enmet, he had to be resigned after she was stripped of her PhD degree because of plagiarism. Then recently, a celebrated French physicist who was nominated for Nobel Prize, of the very prestigious Institute of Advanced Studies for Science and Technology in France, in Paris. He was again accused of plagiarizing more than a dozen, you know, of the articles from different scientists, and he had to lose his job very recently. I think the case went on 2019. He lost his job, and 2017 when Donald Trump took over as the president. His daughter Ivanka Trump visited India, and in Hyderabad, she used a speech she spoke about, and the US media accused her of plagiarizing the speech out of Henry Clinton's speech, which she made some time back, and she had to be ultimately apologized to. And another recent incident is Dr. T. Santhanam, a computer science professor, who was appointed as principal in 2017 uh, of a prestigious college, and he, worked on his PhD thesis in 2001, 16 years earlier, validation of a computer simulation model using spectral analysis, and somebody found out that his research publication was from, borrowed from one of the publication which was published somewhere in 1974, and it was largely based upon that, which he didn't. Dr. Santhanam never shared that information. That part of this information has been borrowed from this. Your majorly information has been borrowed from this. So he had to, be stripped of his PhD and had to resign in 2018. And again, very recently, only last month, Dr. Craig Wright, chief scientist of the Bitcoin in Australia, had to resign because of his uh, work being found as plagiarized. So let me share some of my own experiences in pharmaceutical research, because the topic is on pharmaceutical research. First case study which I encountered of plagiarism was this article: anti-diabetic effects of fenugreek alkaloid extract in streptozocine-induced hyperglycemic rats by Naveen Helmi et al. From Egypt. This was the article, and another article which was published in 2009. This was published in 2007. This was published in 2009. The same anti-diabetic effects of fenugreek alkaloid extract in alloxan induced hyperglycemic rat. Here it is streptozocine, and here it is alloxan. So the model was changed. Instead of streptozotocine, which is considered as a model to induce diabetes, here alloxan was used. And look at the text of the article. This study was undertaken to investigate the effect of alkaloid extract of fenugreek on blood glucose dash. This study was undertaken to investigate the effect of alkaloid extract of fenugreek dried glaze on blood glucose. Exactly the same, but wherever streptozotocine was there, it was alloxan. And this article was found to be totally plagiarized. And this Patel et al. From Pune, they were blacklisted. They were uh, you know blacklisted, and they were debarred from publication in the journal, that's International Journal of Farm Tech Research. Case study 2. In fact, I was part of this. Please don't take it otherwise. I was part of the adjudicating team, judiciary team, to investigate plagiarism. A new generation of 7-chloro-4-aminoquinoline antimalarials, Bhupinder Singh, Deepak Chetia. This is not me, Bhupinder Singh from Dibrugarh. So he published this article. He sent this article in Indian Journal of Pharmaceutical Sciences and Drug Research. The article having been accepted, the editor wrote to Bhupinder Singh that look, your article has been accepted, but you have to pay rupees 2,000 as the publication fee. And Bhupinder Singh wrote back that, look, I'm not having this much of funding to be shared, to be given to you, to be funded to you for getting my good article published in Indian Journal of Pharmaceutical Sciences and Drug Research. You consider my paper as withdrawn. Either you waive off the fee or you consider my paper as withdrawn. Since the journal could not waive off his fee, the article was withdrawn. So he forgot. He started working on exploring other journals for publication of this article. But meanwhile, the same article got published in another journal, Systematic Reviews in Pharmacy, by different group of authors: Virendra Singh, Lalit Kumar Tyagi, Manmohan Singhal, C.S. Sharma, M.L. Corey of Udaipur. And in fact, I was asked because I was on the editorial board of Systematic Reviews in Pharmacy, made no publication. So they requested me, sir, there is one fellow, I don't remember, from South India and you from North India. So together are requested to find out the truth in this claim by Bhupinder Singh that this article is a total copy of his article. And we worked in unison through correspondence and through phone calls with each other almost for a month or so, and found out it's a clear-cut case of plagiarism. It's total plagiarism done by Virendra Singh, Lalit Kumar Tyagi, and Manmohan Singhal. And we could find out that M.L. Corey, C.S. Sharma, Manmohan Singhal, and Lalit Kumar Tyagi, the last four authors, were uh, the editorial board members of the previous journal, Indian Journal of Pharmaceutical Sciences and Drug Research. So they had access to this article. So one of them passed on this article, maybe M.L. Corey, to Virendra Singh, one of the students, So, and asked him to, submit the same in Systematic Reviews in Pharmacy. And he sent it. The work was accepted and work was published. And when we pointed out to Systematic Reviews that it's a total case of plagiarism, they withdrew that paper, and they, held Lalit Kumar Tyagi, Manmohan Singhal, C.S. Sharma, M.L. Corey, and their student Virendra Singh as the accused and as the plagiarist, and they debarred them from publication in med-no publication journals. So this was the article which was published, a new generation of in Systematic Reviews in Pharmacy. This is how it appeared. Case study 3. In fact, it was the case where I myself became a victim. One of my publications got published, in some other journal, totally copied. One of my students reports to me, sir, one of your articles which were you published in Scientia Pharmaceutica in 2012 has been, published by somebody else in 2013 or 14. So this was my article, 2012, and this was the other article. This is article Formulation Optimization of Hydrodynamically Balanced Oral Control Release Biodigest Tablets. This is Formulation Optimization of hydrodynamically balanced oral control release biodigest tablets of tramadol hydrochloride. Same. This is Bhupinder Singh, that's me, et al. This is Afsar Sheikh et al. From somewhere in Maharashtra, district Nandurbar, somewhere in Maharashtra. And same article, exactly same information. So whistle was blown. We wrote to, my research team, was, very perturbed. How could that happen, sir? So let's write to the editor. We wrote to the article, but journal was Asian Journal of Pharmaceutical Sciences and Clinical Research. But editor does not yield any response. Then my research team was perturbed. So मैंने कहा छोड़ो यार कोई बात. So but my research team told, sir, let's write to the editorial board member. Like, okay, try to find out the emails of editorial board member. Let's write to them. They found out almost the email IDs of almost all the editorial board members of Asian Journal of Pharmacy and Clinical Research, and we wrote to them. And some of them told that, yes, we have been inducted into the editorial board member without our own concurrence, those who are from countries beyond India. And some of them simply, withdrew. And some of them, wrote to the editor to withdraw this article. But there was no response from the editor still. Then the original journal, that Scientia Pharmaceutica, writes to me for reviewing one of the article in their journal. I accepted that offer of reviewing that article in that journal. Simultaneously, I wrote that one of the articles which we wrote in 2010 with you has been totally plagiarized by somebody in 2012. And back came the email from Scientia Pharmaceutica. Why didn't you tell me earlier, Dr. Bhoop? We have a definitive mechanism to find out whether it is copy or not. And when I sent my article, which was published in Scientia Pharmaceutica and what has been published in Asian Journal of Pharmacy and Clinical Research, he next day he sent me a report that this Afsar Sheikh guy is not doing it for the first time. He's doing it for the second time. He has already plagiarized one more paper totally. So this is his second case of plagiarism, and Scientia Pharmaceutica is going to write to their principal. I just told, being a considerate senior, I told, oh, okay, please, don't write to the principal. Let me talk to this guy. So I tried to find out his email and wrote to him. No response. Second email, no response. Third email, no response. Then I found out his landline number and tried to call. No response. Then I sent an email to him in a little threatening zone. If you do not respond, then I'm going to take a very strict action. Then he, responded back at my landline number in the office, and I was not there. So he told my research scholars that just tell sir, this was Afsar Sheikh, जिनका जिसका आर्टिकल उनके आर्टिकल के साथ coincidentally मैच कर गया है. Coincidentally, look at the kind of guts this guy has got, even after performing so much of negativity. Okay, then we threatened this guy for penalty. To cut the long story short, that I'm going to defame. I told them that I'm connected with so many Indian journals as a member of the editorial boards, or even as a author, or even otherwise, and I'll write to all of them not to publish any of the findings, and from your group, from all of the co-authors, and also I'm going to write to your principal to penalize you. Then he apologized. Finally, he apologized. Manika, nothing doing. You have, not only you, your co-authors have to also apologize. Finally, we obtained apologies from all of them. And very interestingly, the people who were associated with him were the vice principal and other senior faculty members of the same institute. So it was done in connivance with those people. This is something which is not palatable till date for me. So article was finally withdrawn by the journal, and here is the article withdrawn. This was where it was published. You look at the bottom, formulation optimization, Afsar Sheikh, Asir Quazi, Said Quazi, Siraj Shah, Tariq Khan, Amol Chaudhary. Amol Chaudhary had left for Australia, so probably, and he was not traceable. So besides him, all others tendered the apologies. And then it was written, article has been withdrawn for publication due to plagiarism. Then the journal writes an editorial. Asian Journal of Pharmaceutical and Clinical Research, first case of plagiarism. He writes an editorial, and then he invites me to write an article on anti-plagiarism. I got nothing doing. I'm not going to be associated with your journal anymore. So what can it lead to? It can lead to withdrawal of the paper, retraction of the paper, notification of your parents and the parent institute, referral to administrators. It can lead to suspension or dismissal of the employees. It can lead to loss of reputation in your circles, and it can lead to blacklisting by publishers. But there are no legal punishments as such available in India and most of the countries. However, in Philippines, I was just going through, plagiarism is punishable by fines to the tune of $100 to $50,000. Even in USA, the plagiarism is considered as a felony. Felony is one step less than a crime, not mild crime. So if a plagiarist copies and earns more than 2,500 from copyright infringement, he has to pay 100 times 2,000 to 2 lakh in fines and up to 10 years in jail, if he has earned out of it. So there are so many software which can detect plagiarism these days. The journals normally tend to take into account Authenticate, the very first software, Turnitin, and Plagiarism Detector. These are the softwares which are normally, while others are also used, Dupli Checker, compilation, Quitext, Grammarly, and the Urkund software. Urkund software is the software which has been recommended lately. Earlier, UGC, recommended Turnitin. Nowadays, they are recommending Urkund software, which is provided freely, complementarily by the UGC to various governmental institutes and or high-ranking government-supported institutes, and people can search their thesis, and if the similarity rate is very high, so there are penalties for those PhD scholars. And of course, with respect to publications, you have to do it as per the norms of that publisher. And normally, the publishers are dependent, the international publishers, by Elsevier, by Springer, etc., Authenticate or Turnitin. So, and there is a free online plagiarism checker as well. That is searchenginereports.net/article-check.espx. So small amount of information can be, so maybe 2-3 pages, can be checked freely by this plagiarism checker software by anyone and everyone. So how do they work? In fact, I think we are going little beyond the time, but they are, yeah, a little beyond time. So you have to work on, the software works on stylometry, string matching, substring matching, so on. String matching is the most common algorithm on which these plagiarism detection software work. So if you wish to reduce the similarity rate, you have to use synonymous language such that the text changes but context does not. So the information does not change, but of course the language should change. So that the string matching, if string matching is no more there, your matching rate, your similarity rate will reduce, and the plagiarism report will be favorable, and the journal would accept. Today is, the one of the quality standards of the journals is the inverse proportionality to the match rate. If your article's match rate is less than 10%, it will be considered as very good original publication. Rest of the scientific contents will be seen, of course, but in the very first go, the editor will look into whether the match rate is high or not. If the match rate is beyond 20% and close to 20%, they can write back to you, that please reduce it. Sometimes, if the match rate is very high, 25, 30%, they straight away reject it. So lesser the match rate, more is considered as a quality standard these days. So one must know how to use our own language, how to put the same words into your own phrases, into your own sentences, without losing the context, without changing the meaning, conveying the same thing but in a different language. We must know how to re-paraphrase and you know change that string. String matching should not occur. So other algorithms of fingerprinting, citation, stylometry, etc., are also considered as the devices by virtue of which these plagiarism software work. And Punjab University, we have been working for the last 12 years for using earlier Turnitin, and now the softwares like Urkund are available with every faculty members. Earlier, now university is still thinking of Urkund as well as Turnitin both, because Urkund's database is not very big enough, so the similarity rate is not found to be good enough. For It's a blessing in disguise for those who are submitting their PhD thesis, because their similarity is not coming out to be very high. But it's not a blessing in disguise for those who are using this software, Urkund software, for getting similarity checked for research publications, because it doesn't show much similarity, 8%, 10%, while Turnitin would show it as 35%, because Turnitin has got very large database, access to so much of journals, while Urkund has relatively limited database available. So there are books and books written on plagiarism and other ethical practices. Besides that, little bit information about other unethical practices: fabrication and falsification. So falsification is changing the data, and original picture, say for example over here, the building is a dilapidated structure, but this guy is getting himself photographed before a picture which is considered to be much more robust. So it's falsifying the information, it's changing the actual information. And fabrication is cooking you're cooking the data, you are changing, not changing, you are making up the data. So in other words, falsification is changing data, fabrication is making up data. Plagiarism is using words or ideas without proper acknowledgement. So falsification is just like lying, jhoot bolna. Fabrication is making up the data, like cheating, धोखा देना. Fabrication is धोखा देना, falsification is झूठ बोलना. And plagiarism is copying or stealing, chori karna. And there are other redundant publications, Slimy slicing means, I'll explain a little bit about the same. Duplicate publications, cheating, bribery, sabotage, ghostwriting. Slimy slicing means, you are changing one part of the information each time in different publications. You are not plagiarizing in toto, but plagiarizing in part. Duplicate publication, dishonest intellectual thought, theft, and the reviewer or reader can check it. Data augmentation, again, you are publishing and adding some data to it and then republishing, trying to republish the same. Cheating, you are obtaining someone's assistance or facilitation in getting publication, or you are assisting somebody. Bribery, you are paying money or you're accepting money for publication. And sabotage, you are working against the scientific discovery, scientific revelation, or scientific publication of somebody else. And in this case, I'll cite one piece of, again, an Indian scientist, young scientist. In 2010, he was postdoc fellow at University of Michigan, USA, Dr. Vipul Brigu from India. And his guide was, very much impressed with Dr. Vipul and one uh, Japanese girl. That Japanese girl who was, you know, also in the same group, used to outperform Vipul Brigu. Vipul Brigu was somehow envious of her because the guide used to appreciate her a lot in comparison to Dr. Vipul. So what did he do? He contaminated her Western blot experiments, in laboratory twice. And, she used to complain. She used to, as many times the ladies, tend to scum. She used to even break down that my results are getting spoiled each time. My Western blotting experiments are getting spoiled. Then one day she became skeptical of Vipul Brigu. Then she kept the web camera of her laptop on. CCTV cameras were not there very usually at that very time. So she kept the web camera on, and Vipul Brigu was found to, you know, uh, carrying out some kind of sabotage with her Western blot experiment, and he was found red-handed. He was, asked to explain his conduct, which for which he apologized, and he was deported to India. And his career is doomed. You know. So for one case of misconduct, for one case of sabotage against one of his meets, his career is doomed. So it was reported in none other than Nature 2010. Postdoc Vipul Brigu destroyed a colleague's experiment to get ahead. You know, you look at that. This was the front page information in uh, Nature. Ghostwriting. If you are or somebody else is putting in efforts in publication without technology, this is called as ghostwriting. An anonymous author. This in lighter vein, this guy is telling, okay, you chose me as autobiographical ghostwriter. Autobiography, is to be written by the person himself. But he tells that since you have chosen me for writing your autobiography, if I need anything from you, I will consult you. So this is called as ghostwriting. So you're hiring some ghostwriting for writing your autobiography. Mom, I need you to ghostwrite my English essay. And the advertisement is ghostwriters wanted, and even ghosts are thinking of employing. Misconduct. My dear friends, misconduct is the unethical practice in good volume, very good, colossal ethical misconduct is called as fraud, and it is legally punishable too. Frauds in scientific research, so many have happened. Many times this get happened if you cannot compete and you are not left with any other option but to commit a fraud. Sometimes back we heard that rats were cloned, and rat were cloned, rabbits were cloned, mule were cloned, bull were cloned, and dog were cloned, and then we came the then came the news that human embryos are also cloned, and all turned out to be fraudulent. And this guy, the South Korean researcher Woo Suk Hwang, who reported in Science journal. The most sought after journal is Nature, and next to that is Science, something 80-90 impact factor. So two of his publications published in Science were withdrawn. And then there was our university, Punjab University, is always ranked amongst the top 10 universities across 10, 12 universities. Amongst universities, it's in the top five. And if you include IITs and IIScs as well, it's in the top 10. And despite it being a very prestigious university, one of the scientists, around a few decades back, Dr. Vijay Gupta, Professor Vijay Gupta, who was then Dean Students Welfare and who was pitted for the next vice chancellorship, and at that very time, who had 450 publications and 18 were accused against, he was caught in fossil fraud from geology department. This handsome guy is Professor Vijay Gupta. You know, he was a fossil guy. He was a geologist. Paleontologist, and he once went to New Wales Museum, and along with his research scholar, and somehow he got enticed by some of the fossils, and he pilfered those. He stole some fossils with the help of his student, from that New Wales Museum. I'm talking about 80s, late 80s, and they brought those fossils here. And one day they took out the expedition to Himalayas, uh, sub-Himalayas near Chandigarh, and planted those fossils over there with the help of his research scholars. The picture is also visible over here, the fossils. And the guy told, "Sir, dekho ye kuch mila hai." The guy who was in connivance with Dr. Vijay Gupta. And Dr. Vijay Gupta, said, "Yes, this is a fossil." And they reported in none other than Nature Journal. But one of the scientists, Professor Talent from Australia, he became skeptical that, how could this happen? These kind of fossils in India, it's not digestible. So then he recalled that such kind of fossils he saw in New Wales Museum. He has got some photographs as well. So he wrote to New Wales Museum whether any fossils have been stolen from your museum, or Dr. Vijay Gupta have very recently visited you, and within a month, because email was not there at that very time, within a month, he got the answer, yes, some fossils were stolen, pilfered from our New Wales Museum, despite very strong, security arrangements. And it's true that during those days, Dr. Vijay Gupta, along with his research scholar, also visited us. So things became clear to Talent. So Talent wrote another article in Nature and exposed Dr. Vijay Gupta. The Punjab University's name was, during those days, I still remember, I was the young professor over there, young assistant professor, that's lecturer at that very time, was at the lowest ebb. And uh, he was asked to, resign, which he resented initially, which he defended initially, but ultimately he observed that those publications are standing in front of his very high prestige, very high, a tall reputation which he had enjoyed for decades to come. So he ultimately chose to resign and led a anonymous life thereafter, at various places. Then in scientific misconduct, some reports were from Bell Laboratories, in USA, had to be withdrawn again from journals like Nature Physics, which is also very high impact factor journals, some 60, 70 impact factor, because they had carried out some superconductivity experiments on some instruments which were never there in Bell Laboratories. In Chinese scenario, some 70 papers contained false crystal structure by Hua Zhong and Liu in early 2010s, 2007 to 2009. So their papers were restricted and they had to apologize. In Russia, in 2006 and 7, it was found that almost 3% of the papers uh, had a plagiarism case. So since 2008, all dissertations are being computer checked, and even the current premier, that is uh, Putin, who has been reigning uh, champion, reigning president for the almost more than 12 years. In between, he lost one election, but for the last 15 years, not continuously, but he has been at the helm of the affair. But his doctorate was accused to be plagiarized, but he, being in the power, covered up the story, and the guy who was his mentor was made as the rector of you know the rector of the institute was made as the election campaigner of Putin. So it was not found out, that he is actually the culprit, because people attribute he being in the power. So, my dear friends, scientific conduct we should always try to avoid. And whistleblowing is an, I'm coming to close. Whistleblowing is an, activities where you tend to report the unethical practices. So you tend to raise concern. It could be internally, it could be externally, and whistleblowers at times, have to face difficult situations as well. Sometimes they are rewarded too, like this boss tells, okay, you did the right thing, whistleblower, so naturally we have to fire you, goodbye. And many times, this bust, he's a whistleblower, and he used to point out fingers. Now his bust is lying over there. Now sometimes they are awarded, and the guy tells, we are in trouble because our whistleblower, has recently been awarded. And sometimes there are so many whistleblowers, as this guy, who's talking on phone, and you see so many people who are peeping through curtains or through behind the doors, who are trying to listen. So they are potential whistleblowers. And sometimes, the administration, asks you to play anonymity, play, put a mask around you, so that, you maintain anonymity while whistleblowing. Now, I take a pause. Let me ask you a question, not physically, but internally, you may answer. I give you a statement. Cheating is an art of the smart people. What do you think, my dear friends? Hmm? Obviously, majority tend to think yes, yes, sir. Cheating is the act of smart people. But I do not agree. In fact, it is the temptation. Cheating is the temptation for simple shortcuts to success that allures the lazy one. It is a job of the lazy ones. The smart people never do, such type of cheating exercises. But why do we do? Because the pressures are high, competition is increasing, funding is less many a times, and performance is based upon number of papers, number of projects, and the evaluation of papers sometimes is very casual, and sometimes we get allured towards shorter term successes, shortcuts. And sometimes, we do not know how to, understand research ethics, you know and sometimes we have not been taught research ethics. In this regard, I must appreciate Dr. Jagdish and his team for having chosen this topic, and having given this opportunity to educate you on through my experience on research publishing, because this is very important. Unless we know, how can we avoid it? So the fundamental law is ignorance, lack of information and knowledge, many a times that lead you to commit errors, So the teacher tells you fail, and the guy tells, but I didn't know that I was plagiarizing. How, so please, but nothing can be done. Sometimes ethics are blown out of proportions as well. Bioethics, medical ethics, legal ethics, ethics. And as this guy, one of them is asking, please, let's stand together for a click of the photograph. And the guy tells, okay, everybody gather around for a picture. And the guy tells, one of the skeptical guys who's over enthusiastic about such type of issues, he tells, not so fast. First, you have to sign this agreement stating that you will not, under any circumstances, publish this photo on the internet, including blogs, Facebook, MySpace, Flickr, without my written consent. So this is blowing out of many times proportions. So ethical publishing, there are guidelines on good publication practices, uh, and guidelines to avoid research misconduct. And all the publishers have gathered, a vast majority of the publishers of particularly the scientific publishers and social scientific publishers, they have gathered together to form a committee which is called as Committee on Publication Ethics, COPE. And it started with finding the ethical and unethical practices, and to avoid and to stop plagiarism. And those who are interested, they can go to the site of cop.org. And key ethical principles, I wrote a couple of articles. The gist of those is this. And those who are interested, I can send the articles to Dr. Jagdish to be shared with you all. So I shared in those articles do's and don'ts as well. What should we do and what should we not do. General, the article was published in Journal of Farm Negative Results 2010, so Medno Publications. And this was the inaugural issue, and I was invited to write an article on the same. And I proposed HALE ethical norms in that article. H for honesty, A for animal care, and so on. The acronym HALE and ethical norms. And there are many web sources, again, ethical research practices. Many organizations like NIH, National Institute of Health, etc., WHO, and they are maintaining ethical practices as one of their policies in their websites and otherwise in their organization. And in this regard, let me share the new UGC policy, although majority of us may be conversant with being the teachers, that up to 10% no issue, but up to no credits will be given, up to 40%, above 60% no marks will be awarded, and for similarities above 60%, they will not be allowed to publish any work for at least 3 years. They will be denied. And if the plagiarism is highest, in many a times, the mentors will be debarred from publication, and one increment can be withdrawn, and if it is little more, two increments can be withdrawn. For similarities up to 40%, they will be asked to withdraw the manuscript and will not be allowed to publish work. So I think we must look into the plagiarism policy of the UGC time and again, on and off, before getting into this imbroglio. So this is very recent, relatively, 2008, when they have provided you with the plagiarism software as well. So Urkund has been provided freely since October 2019, since almost 6-7 months. And these are some of our publications, and cumulative impact factor H index, citations nearly 9,000. And uh, just a minute, please. Deepan, Okay. I kept on and on without. Share screen. Hello. Hello. Yep. The other part. Hello.
Yes, sir. Audible, sir. Audible, sir.
Hello. Can
Sir,
you hear?
hello, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Audible, sir. You are audible, sir.
And my screen?
Yes, sir. Screen is visible, sir. You can start the screenshot. Screenshot, sir.
Okay, man. Because I in the last 10 minutes probably we lost.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So I'll hurriedly go through the same.
You go to the PPT presentation, sir, and you can start the last slide at which
Okay.
presentation stops.
Yeah. Okay. I beg your pardon. I didn't note that internet is not working. I kept, working with. I kept speaking without noticing that the internet is not working.
That
Please.
is,
Okay. This was done. This was done. Anna, this was
yes,
done. Huh?
yes. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And
Over.
Anna,
Yes, sir.
whistleblowing was done. And I probably this was the case. I shift F5. I was here probably.
Sir. No, sir. This was also done, sir.
Okay, this was also done.
Yes, sir.
This was done.
Yes, yes sir.
What
Here,
was,
here. Yes, sir. Here.
we are yet to do. This was also done. Anna? So,
Yes.
What about this? Oh, this was done.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay.
Over. Sir. Yes, sir. Here.
So we are hardly left with 5 minutes then. So these are some of the sites, where some plagiarism and other unethical practices information is there. And I just, and then here is the UGC policy. Did we touch upon this? UGC policy, did we talk about this? Okay.
Yes.
So this is as per the new UGC policy, your similarity rate should not be, in any case, more than 10%, but in special cases, it should always be less than 40%, and above 60%, there is a provision for penalty to the candidate as well as to the mentor. And you keep checking the UGC site for the norms which are issued now and then by the UGC for plagiarism detection and plagiarism, the similarity allowance. And Union HRD Ministry keep announcing such type of information in various websites, not only UGC, AICT, and MCI, PCI, etc. Urkund software they are providing complementarily to the governmental institutes or government-sponsored institutes, which is relatively cost-effective, but with the less wide, structure, with less wide database, and many times the students tend to be very happy that the plagiarism detection, which was found to be 40% with Turnitin, has been found to be only 12% using Urkund, because Urkund is being supplied with less voluminous database to depend upon. Uh, for their PhD thesis, it's okay, but for submission of the manuscripts, it becomes many times a real challenge, because the journal tends to find out the similarity as 40%. You have found using Urkund as 12%, so it doesn't give you the real feelings. So, my dear friends, these are some of our publications: 393 ethical publications, and H-index 44, and nearly 9,000 citations, and uh, five filed and two granted patents. And this is where I published for the first time, Compromising Research for Publishing Thirst, 2010, the first issue, the inaugural issue I was invited to. In Journal of Pharm, negative results, made no publications. I can share the same with Dr. Jagadish and Dr. Jogender, to be shared with all of the participants. And subsequently, a small, concise report was also published in Chronicle Pharmabiz as well. So these are the industries with which I have been working in collaboration with, and particularly to train them on QBD, biowaivers, nanomedicine, etc. And these are some of the awards which have been fetched by my students in India, USA, and UK, and some of the awards won by me in the last a few years. And this is the UK award on scientist par excellence. And very recently, we in 2016, we got 2000 second rank NIRF rank across the country, and since then we have been maintaining this position in first three for since 2016. This year too, we are number two, and but irrespective whether we are number one, two, or three, we at UIPS are ranking number one in research, professional practice, and collaborative performance across the nation. I can share with lot of satisfaction and pride, and this is due to the high traditions which this institute is maintaining, like as we have predecessors like Professor Harkishan Singh, Professor Kulkarni, and Professor K.N. Gand. Professor Harkishan Singh, whom we lost very recently on 20th March 2020, the only Padma Shri awardee in pharmaceutical sciences. Here he is being awarded with Padma Shri in 2017. My dear friends, I'm uh, consolidating and compiling and completing. मंजिल तो मिल ही जाएगी, जरा भटक के से गुमराह तो वो लोग हैं जो घर से निकले ही नहीं. I personally feel success is a journey, not the destination. So we should not be happy reaching at the destination, but we should make the journey itself as successful. And journey to destination is usually straight, simple, but not very zigzag. But the colors around us sometimes distract us from our right and righteous path, and we get tempted to follow the shortcuts, and we run over the ethical and moral values, and ultimately we get demeaned, denigrated in our own eyes, as this guy is getting denigrated, and we fall into the ditch and call for help. And in this regard, Dr. Albert Einstein, a scientist to whom I regard as one of the best, tell that try not to become a man of success merely, but try to become a man of value. Unless you can render some value, so success is of no meaning. And many times, we are not able to maintain that ethical conscientiousness, and we have to, pray and meditate upon it. So I seek your 30, 40 seconds, everybody's, to pray, to join in prayer and join in meditation with universal law to grant us conscientiousness. We need to pray and meditate on that one universal law to get ethical grace showered on us. And let's all commit today to adhere to this ethical path always. My dear friends, it is the attitude that determines the altitude which we are going to cross. Hence, we have to transform our attitude. And a journey of 1,000 miles has to start with a single leap. Let's have that single leap. And finally, I gratefully appreciate and acknowledge important textual and internet sources, especially the webtoons, pictures, and clip arts in compiling these presentations. Some of those resources are here. If I do not include them, you will call my presentation as a plagiarized one. This is our well-knit team consisting of 4 postdocs and 7 research scholars whom I am guiding, 5 research scholars whom I'm co-guiding, and my collaborator, Professor O.P. Katare. And there are several MPharm fellows, at the entrance of the institute where I serve, that's University Institute of Pharmaceutical Sciences. Thank you very much. And this is for you. And I solicit any questions from the audience, from young faculty members. Thank you so much for your patient listening, and I apologize for the technical lapse and the interruption in the networking, that's the internet in between, which I couldn't note of, and I continued for 10-15 minutes without having observed that the internet is not working. Thank you so much for your forbearance.
Sir, thank you, sir. Sir, we have some questions from participant side, sir.
Yeah.
So that's it is shown on screen, sir, so that you can answer, sir.
Yeah, certainly.
Sir.
In many institutes, staff are being pressurized to write articles without giving sufficient time to do original work. Your advice to the young teachers first,
So this is for...
Certainly, very ticklish and very intelligent questions, very practical question. This is particularly the private institutes where we do not have the facilities and infrastructure, but the pressure is on, whether on private or government institutes, to perform. So the authorities tend to pressurize the faculty members to perform, but there should not be any compromise whatsoever with respect to originality. No compromise, please. The ethics come first. But there are ways to collaborate. My humble suggestion to you is, you carry out your own SWOT analysis: strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. That I can do this kind of work, but I cannot, carry out this kind of activity. Wherever you tend to feel that you are lacking something, you have some weakness, find out the people who can let you come out of those weaknesses. Collaborate with them, and maybe you have to knock at a couple of doors. You have to prove your zeal, your enthusiasm, and your quest for knowledge and publications. And once those collaborators are convinced, they will open their doors, because they are also going to be benefited out of the joint publications. Everybody in today's scenario wants collaboration. And if you are trying to do it yourself, I think we are living in fool's paradise. This is an era where good publications can be, or good work can be done only with synergistic collaborations. You have to choose the collaborators, you have to knock at their doors, and you have to get their support. And you are to ensure that, they will be benefited in due course of time as well. This is the only way. And wherever possible, you should convince your seniors and your management to provide you with the better infrastructure, better facilities to perform good work. If you cannot, then ask them to help by collaborating with other institutes too. This is the only way I can suggest in this area. Then there is one Madam Deepthi. She says, not only in AP, in other states too, many university faculty recruitment interviews, they are asking about Scopus publication. Is Scopus only the best publisher? Yeah, Deepthi, Scopus is not the publisher. Please try to understand. Science Direct, Scopus is one conglomerate of the journals, which there are two important, sites, which tend to have a bird's eye view of the publication. One is Scopus, another is Google Scholar. So Scopus means, the journals. Scopus publications means, they are asking about your publications in Scopus indexed journals. Scopus is not a journal. Please try to understand. Scopus is a conglomerate of journals where, which Scopus covers that. It's just for example, in India, we have Indian Pharmaceutical Association, we have Association of Pharmaceutical Teachers of India, which covers so many colleges, which covers so many. IPA is a body of not only teachers and beyond. So whichever organization does it cover, that organization is IPA. Similarly, Scopus is an organization which tends to cover so many journals, so many publishers. So if your publication journal is indexed by Scopus, it is considered to be a very respectful and meaningful journals. So there's nothing wrong in that, and this means credibility of the publications. And Scopus index journals, even if I am the recruiter, I would also ask the candidate that are your publications Scopus indexed or Google Scholar indexed. If these are not, so these are not standing the yardstick of quality. It may be good, but we need to have some yardstick by virtue of which we can ascertain the quality. I hope I am clear to Deepthi. The next is, sir, what percentage of self-copying is accepted? Whether self-citation is considered as plagiarism? What percentage of self-copying? Self-copying. Self-copying, you mean self-plagiarism probably, If there is no such percentage. But for thesis purpose, UGC very recently, you'll have to find out from which source. But very recently, some of the faculty members, senior faculty members who are associated with UGC, I have been associated with the UGC for quite long, but I'm not part to that decision. But very recently, I came to know that very recently, a few months back, UGC has approved that if the information is from the candidate's own publication, and the information, or in other words, is technical. For example, word is non-compartmental pharmacokinetics. For example, it is critical quality attributes, and the software will be telling that it's a the plagiarism software alternate, and your Urkund will be telling that this is a case of similarity. But the UGC policy tends to allow you to take care of such technical terms and such type of, to what an extent, you'll have to find out. But this is not self-copying. This is similarity, publication similarity from your own paper. Now, the second part is self-citation. Please, I have not answered that question. Self-citation, you can cite. Whether self-citation is considered as plagiarism, It's not considered as plagiarism. But some journals, tend to, avoid. But unless you cite yourself, how can you tell that part of this information has been borrowed from your own publication? You have to cite. But whether that citation is considered good enough for reaping the benefits in your citation index, that is a separate question. But you can and you must cite your own papers, Sahiti. Dr. Swan and Suryakant Swan. Sir, very informative session, but my question is, thank you very much for your compliments. My question is, why single blinded review process still following some publishers instead of double blinded review process? I think the journals where I am publishing, so it is not even single blinded, double blinded. I'm publishing in good journals, for 6, 5, 8, even 3, even sometimes 2 impact factor journals, and minimum number of reviewers is 2, and it can go to 6, 2 to 6 reviewers. I have been subjected to. Normally, it is 2 to 4. Average is 2.5, something like that. Reviewers. I'm yet to come across a journal. My experience, which is single blinded review. It is a double blinded review. Single blinded review process is allowed only for journals which are not having any impact factor or which are open access journals. And I endorse your view. It should be double blinded. It should be minimum double blinded. But for increasing the accelerating the speed of publication, many a times the less impactful journals may be resorting to single blinded reviews, and I'm not accepting that. But since they have to increase their acceptability amongst the researchers, so they may be adopting such kind of practices. But I endorse your point. It should be minimum double blinded review process. Thank you, Dr. Swain. Yeah, Noori, excellent session. Thank you. God bless you. Does the software for plagiarism provide the accurate check? Always. And how about the Turnet in web-based tools? Noori, whether it is Turnet web-based tools, I have not yet come across, because we had the access to Turnet in being the head of the institute for the last. Earlier, I was chairperson of the Institute of Institute of Pharmaceutical Sciences. Then I was coordinator. I have been coordinator of Ugc Center for Excellence in Nanobiomedical for the last 10 years. I'm at the helm of the affair, so I have access to Turnitin. So absolutely no issues for me. So I have never come across personally the web-based Turnet in tool, but certainly the information provided would be the same. Now, your question, which I have not answered, does the software plagiarism provide the accurate check? Certainly, accurate check, depending upon how vast the database that journal has got. And it depends upon the string matching. And there is a provision. In certain journals, they do not cite, how much should be the string size. 4 words, 8 words, 6 words. So if your 4 words tend to match with that of another 4 words, the similarity will be more. 8 words, similarity will be less. So you have to check at the settings of your Turnitin with that of the publisher's Turnitin. So, but the information provided by Turnitin is always, factual, correct, truthful, provided your journal article or the source of article has not gone into the repository. Many times, the draft of the article which we screen goes to the repository, and the second article gives 100% similarity report. It should not go to the repository. So these are the issue, but the softwares are very good enough, and they are highly dependable, but particularly turn it in. Thank you, Nuri. Neelam. Please clarify what a plagiarism about review article. Yeah, the same is applicable for review article. So let me share one example. I was invited by General Controllees very recently, JCR, I think 8 plus impact factor, to write a review article. And I had to go to overseas. I completed that review article because that was time bound, and sent that article. I asked students, finally, my dependable research scholars, to do this kind of services, this table correction, and I have my flight ready. So you submit this article from my website, my email ID. They did so, and within, although it was an invited article, and it was a review article, and within 4 or 5 days, my article got reverted back, rejected. Invited article, rejected. I just asked them, on my return, from China, why, my article has been rejected on account of similarity. It has been, your similarity has come out to be 17%, 17 point something percent. Authenticate software. And so we accept articles below 15% similarity. So even if your article is invited, since its a similarity report is above 15%, we do not. And in fact, when I went to overseas, I had checked, it had come to 13%, something like that. But students must have used some information here and there. It got increased a couple of percent, and they didn't check before that. So it came, and they never accepted even the revised version for the same. For review articles, the journals are very, very finicky, very, very fastidious, very, very cautious, because people tend to copy paste the information. But as far as the name of the drugs or drug delivery or something like that, that would remain the same, but the information has to be re-paraphrased. So the same policy is applicable for review articles as well. Neelam, I hope I am able to convince you. Right. Any other queries? Okay, Shantanu Laha. How beginners will learn to write research article? It's a question not falling under my purview for research ethics, but certainly beginners has to, journey of 1,000 miles has to start with a single leap. They should, write articles, and they should, submit the same to your mentors. Remember, it's not merely your flight; it is the flight of you and your mentor, and together you should, and your co-authors as well. So together you should write a good article and get it checked for similarity. You must know how to paraphrase. You must never cite the original source of information. That's what I would say. And writing is just like, building Rome. Rome was not built in a day. Taj Mahal was not built in a day. Rameshwar temple or Golden Temple were not built in a day. And writing publication will not be learned in a day or so. So you have to start. You have to keep working, and you would learn. There are 3 keys for writing articles. Number 1, practice. Number 2, practice. Number 3, practice. Thank you, Shantanu. Samita, how will identify this relevant journal to publish our research paper? Because so many criteria for publication of paper according to university for national and international journals. How will, again, I keep telling my research scholars, and we keep facing this problem every now and then. Carrying out good research is not merely performing good laboratory experiments. Carrying out literature search is not another mandatory exercise only. For publication, you have to select appropriate journals. That also is part of research. Which journals do you select? You'll have to, of course, seek the guidance. Your mentors, your seniors in the field would guide you. बेटा ये जर्नल देख लो, समिता ये देख लो, ये देख लो. And on journals, and you have your own information, you have the information from your peers and your seniors, etc. And you just check into the, if you have access to those journals, you just check into what kind of information is contained in those journals. Then you format your paper according to those journals, if you and your mentor and your team agrees, and then publish the same. If it does not fall into their domain, their purview, their realm, they will revert back at you. Or sometimes some good publisher tend to give you hint that it's not good for publication in this journal, but you can select from the list of the journals which I am sending, because the publication is of good quality. So finding good journals for your research work is a research work in itself. So, and it's a team exercise, not only of yours, but of your mentor and your co-authors too, to select good journals. Even at this age, at this stage, while guiding research to students, we have to carry out a lot of research, and many times our articles get rejected. Now, recently, one article of collaborative article with UK of let me share has been rejected 4 times. Has been rejected 4 times, and the article is now under review in a journal of much higher reputation because of the appropriateness. Probably we were not knocking at appropriate doors. My student was not knocking at my. Then I sat with her, and we looked into various possibilities, and found out better possibility where the journal is under review. It will be certainly, giving us some information, whether rejected or some reviewer information, some feedback will be there, because we could now knock at another good journal, better journal than the previous one, but that was most appropriate according to the contents of the journal, contents of the article for that journal. I hope I am able to convince. Then Mathro Shri Annapurna. She says that I am in pharmaceutical analysis, the general validation parameters and procedure, instrument names, I set guidelines are also counting for plagiarism. How to avoid it, sir? There's no such magic wand with me, to avoid plagiarism. We 1/3 or 1/4 of our articles, Matrushri, are on pharmaceutical analysis, because I'm a drug delivery man, but before drug delivery is done, analysis has to be established. LC-MS methods, have to be adopted. LC-MS or LC or UPLC or GC or even spectrophlorometry or spectrophotometry or something like that have to be established. And almost 40-50 publications we have got in pharmaceutical analysis itself. Issues do crop up with respect to similarity, but you have the same yardstick. You have to re-paraphrase. Technical terms remain the same. You have to re-paraphrase. You have to break that string. है ना? Say, अगर for example लिखा हुआ है that this drug was analyzed by reversed phase high pressure liquid chromatography using this column and this mobile phase and this temperature and this flow rate. You break that string, you change the hierarchy. Sorry, फ्लो रेट पहले ले आइए, मोबाइल फीस बाद में ले जाइए, है ना, ऐसे. एंड उसको लिख दीजिए कि दिस कॉलम, दिस मोबाइल फीस, दिस फ्लो रेट वाज employed to analyze or quantify this drug, and you'll see, that plagiarism is removed. You have to re-paraphrase. That is the case. The same thing is valid for pharmaceutical analysis. Same is valid for technology or pharmaceutical chemistry or all pharmaceutical sciences or all sciences. So there is no, special science or special tactics involved in pharmaceutical analysis. Thank you.
Sir, thank you, sir.
So nice, Mathusiri, and thanks for your compliments.
Thank you, sir.
Any other questions?
Sir, actually, many more questions are there, sir, but time is not sufficient, no, sir.
Okay,
So,
you may send them across,
yes, sir.
you may send them across. I'll try to send an email or send a video clip,
Yes,
later on.
sure, sir.
Right.
Sir, now I'll summarize your session, sir.
Yeah. Right.
Sir, thank you, sir. Thank you for your valuable information, sir. Definitely, our faculty fraternity will definitely it will be helpful. Sir explained what is research and what it endeavors for, what are the major options in research, and how research executed, what are the different potential errors, and why publication is very important, and what is publication is the teamwork, like between author, editorial office, and reviewer. Find what is publishable and what is not publishable, and sir explained about peer review and some ethical unethical publications. Sir explained, and sir explained some examples. With the examples are explained the principal key to a sound publication. And sir explained about what is plagiarism and what are the different types of plagiarisms. And some by taking some examples, sir explained about fraud in research, instances in plagiarism. Some instances are explained, and some perils of plagiarism. By taking some case studies, sir explained unethical publication practices, and sir also explained some possible consequences in plagiarism and some criminalizing plagiarism as per the penal codes of different countries. And sir also explains several softwares regarding plagiarism, and sir suggested some books available for plagiarism and how does plagiarism detection software works, and some falsification, fabrication, plagiarism, and whatnot, sir. So many things sir has explained. Thank you, sir. Your information will be helpful for our faculty fraternity all over the world, sir. So now I request Dr. Jagdish Panda, sir, to say word of thanks.
జోన్ సార్ ఫ్యూ ఇది చూపించండి సార్ గారికి లైవ్ వచ్చాయి కదా కొన్ని కామెంట్స్ పబ్లిష్ బెస్ట్ సార్ యూ కెన్ సీ ఇన్ ది లైవ్ కామెంట్స్ సార్ Bhupinder sir, you can see the live comments beside you. There is a private chat and live chat. If you
thank you so much, sir, for excellent. Wow, thank you, Vaishali. Thank you. Temta very well explained, sir. Session was very. Thank you, Pallavi. Temta Pallavi. Nirja, thank you so much. It's very excellent, sir. An informative session. Wash hands. Okay, nice informative. Dr. Govinda Rajan, MNR. Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Govinda Raj. Thank you, Santi. And Samba Sivarao.
Very sir, one of the very senior most principal, sir, is.
Okay, wow. Thank you so much. Dr. Biswajit, excellent presentation. Thank you, Dr. Biswajit. Okay, thank you so much for the presentation, Chippy, RS Assistant Professor. Thank you, Dr. Chippy, and for very nice comments. Yeah, thank you so much. School of Business. Rama Devi Korni. Thank you, sir, for very unethical publishing. Thank you, Rama Devi. God bless you. God bless you. Sangeeta, excellent section, sir. We came to know so many facts about plagiarism in this section. Thank you, Dr. Sangeeta. Madam Sangeeta. Yeah. Okay.
So many others, sir.
If there are any questions, please do send. I'll try to come back to those questions which I have not been able to address.
Lakshmi GVN students are Lakshmi GVN
Sir, actually, so many are there, sir. So many.
This is a popular topic. Everybody is concerned about it. So I'm so happy that I could make the difference. I could. Yeah.
Sir, beside you, there in your laptop and live comments is that you can see, sir. Okay, patent out now.
Yes.
Yeah. Rama Rao, Mandla Muri. Thank you, Rao. Rama Rao. Sahiti, research is very important, as we all agree, but it be effective if done in passionate way, not due to external forces which will tempt us. Wonderful. I must appreciate. Yeah. Unless you have passion, you maza nahi hai research karne. I keep telling in faculty development programs, when I became professor, I had 69 publications. 69. And today I have 320 publications I have earned after becoming professor, when I have no more echelons to cross. So it's out of passion to do something for the science, to do something for profession, to do something for the institute, to do something for the research. So I must. This was the best comment. Praveen Kumar Dixit, sir, I had met you in UIPS 2016 UC. Okay, Dixit, right? Okay, I remember. Awesome presentation and knowledgeable session, sir. The way you explained things is very good. Thank you, sir. And thanks to RCP, wow, great. Lakshmi, thank you. God bless you. Such things do inspire you to perform better. That increases your passion. Right. Thank you, Lakshmi. God bless you.
Sir, now I request Dr. Jagadish Panda, sir, convener of this program, to say vote of thanks.
Sir, really, it's a great presentation, sir. So we have a lot of experience as we feel, but today, after listening to you, we understand where we are actually. Actually, the problem is that, sir, actually, when for a primary school teacher is having a TET, or a higher school teacher is having the BEd qualification before they are going to as a teacher. But unfortunately, in the higher education system, the professional courses, there were no any such kind of policies there. That's why people are missing. So they're learning, by time they're learning, but which is actually desirable the moment when they come as a faculty, but it is not happening. After you listening, sir, there is this much of, now we are very much as a senior man. I'm now thinking if anybody wants to come and have a co-authorship also, now I have to think several times and I have to go several checks and all these things, sir, actually. So, and sir, actually, so plagiarism we had, and plagiarism certain software, sir, Tantin is there, Raghu is there. So such kind we had, sir. Some whenever there is a possibility, the students, even under me, they are gone on universities. Whatever the universities they are providing, such they are doing this plagiarism check. After that, they are going, sir. But in fact, for the plagiarism, there are different kind of plagiarism. So even I do not know, sir. Many of you are the senior people are also not known, sir, because this kind of session actually we never, because always we are going by for a subject wise, say aesthetics or chemistry or cognosy or biology, like we are going, but actually this kind of this is the actually reason which made me to think in the COVID session during this time I want to give a very good especially train the faculty position. This is actually why I concentrate, sir. This is really this FDP is really is meaningful, sir, because of your great presence. And these all people around almost 600 people, around 589 are like they are registered, sir. So all they'll become fascinated to you and the decibel of yours, sir. So Ekalavya Guru, sir, you are there wherever you may be, definitely. And so thank you very much, sir, for your august presence here and enlightening the people and inspiring the people. And especially we like we also we all are your students, like. And whenever any thing will come, we definitely we seek your presence and we seek your blessings, sir. And thank you very much, sir, on behalf of my Raghu Educational Institution Management, on behalf of me, my colleagues, and the participants, on all behalf of you, of us. And I extremely, I extremely express thank you very much, sir, and very gratitude to you for your discussion.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And my namaskar to everybody. And word of advice is that Gita and Gurbani both tell that हमारे हाथ में सिर्फ कर्म है, कर्म फल मिलेगा, वो देगा, है ना, सिस्टम देगा. So keep doing good activities, कर्म योगी बने. You know, if we are doing chivalrous activities, conscientious activities, awards, rewards would certainly follow. How, when, where, you know, it's not for our job directly. Thank you very much. God bless us all.
For your ethical path, today what we understand, the ethical path is very important.
Yeah, very important. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. This is for today's session, and the next tomorrow's session, YouTube live streaming link will be forwarded to you through WhatsApp groups. This is Jogendra Kumar signing off today.